Nearly 2 million lives evaporated in a mere 5 months, 1 week, and 3 days. The Battle of Stalingrad, a pivotal confrontation of World War II, commenced in August 1942, an epic struggle lasting 163 days. German forces led by Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus's Sixth Army, numbering approximately 300,000 men, pushed deep into the Soviet Union, a strategic offensive aimed at the Volga River city. Their objective was the industrial hub of Stalingrad, a vital communication and manufacturing center for both the Germans and the Soviets. The initial offensive, code named Operation Fischreiher, launched with relentless air raids by the Luftwaffe, involving thousands of sorties causing 90% destruction in some city areas. Soviet resistance was ferocious, primarily from General Vasily Chukov's 62nd Army and General Mikhail Shumilov's 64th Army. These Soviet armies fiercely defended every meter of ground, employing not one step back orders. Street fighting characterized by close-quarter combat and brutal house-to-house engagements became the norm, known by soldiers as the Rat War, where even sewers became battlegrounds for small units. German advances were painstakingly slow, measured in meters, often costing thousands of lives for each building taken, like the Pavlov's house and Mamayev Kurgan. By mid-November 1942, German units controlled 90% of the city center, yet their positions remained tenuous and dangerously overstretched, covering vast urban terrain. The unforgiving Russian winter then unleashed its fury, with temperatures plummeting to -25 to -40 degrees Celsius, a brutal, unrelenting cold. This extreme weather proved as deadly as enemy fire, exacerbating logistical nightmares for already struggling German supply lines attempting to cross vast Russian distances. On November 19, 1942, the Soviet Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a massive pincer movement. This audacious counteroffensive involved over 1 million Soviet troops and 1,500 tanks, successfully encircling the entire German Sixth Army and parts of the 4th Panzer Army in a 40,000 square kilometer area. Approximately 290,000 Axis soldiers were trapped within the Kessel, a shrinking pocket of territory. Hitler's strict no-retreat order sealed their tragic fate despite desperate pleas for a strategic breakout operation. Supplies flown in by the Luftwaffe were woefully inadequate. Daily deliveries were often less than 100 tons, a mere fraction of the required 600 tons needed to sustain the besieged force. Starvation, frostbite, and disease ravaged the encircled troops, claiming thousands of lives daily. Attempts to relieve the pocket, such as Operation Winterstorm, involving 48,000 men and 230 tanks, failed to break through Soviet lines. The relentless Soviet pressure continued for weeks, eroding German morale and fighting capability with daily relentless bombardments. By January 31, 1943, Paulus surrendered his remaining 91,000 troops and 22 generals. This surrender marked a catastrophic defeat for Nazi Germany, a definitive turning point on the Eastern Front from which they would never fully recover their strength. The total Axis casualties, including German, Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian forces, exceeded 850,000 dead, wounded, or captured. Soviet losses were even more staggering. Estimates reached over 1,100,000 military personnel dead, wounded, or missing, and hundreds of thousands of civilians perishing in the brutal fighting. The sheer scale of death and destruction made Stalingrad the bloodiest and most decisive battle in human history. Nearly 2 million souls vanished in just 5 months, 1 week, and 3 days. The Battle of Stalingrad, a pivotal confrontation of World War II, commenced in August 1942, an epic 163-day struggle. Field Marshal Paulus's Sixth Army of 300,000 Germans pushed into Soviet land, targeting Stalingrad, a vital industrial communication and manufacturing center. Operation Fischreiher saw relentless Luftwaffe air raids, thousands of sorties, destroying 90% of some city areas. Generals Chuikov's 62nd and Shumilov's 64th armies fiercely resisted, not one step back, defending every meter. Street fighting became the brutal norm, a rat war of close quarters, house to house, even turning sewers into battlegrounds. German advances were slow, costing thousands of lives for each building, Pavlov's house, Mamayev Kurgan examples. By mid-November 1942, Germans held 90% of the city center, their positions tenuous, overstretched across vast urban terrain. The Russian winter then brought -25 to -40 degrees Celsius, a deadly, unrelenting cold. This weather proved lethal as enemy fire, worsening logistical nightmares for German supply lines across vast Russian distances. On November 19, 1942, the Soviet Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a massive pincer movement. Over 1 million Soviet troops and 1,500 tanks encircled the German 6th Army and 4th Panzer Army units in a 40,000 square kilometer area. Approximately 290,000 Axis soldiers were trapped within the Kessel. Hitler's strict no-retreat order sealed their tragic fate despite pleas for a strategic breakout. Luftwaffe daily deliveries were inadequate, less than 100 tons, a fraction of the 600 tons required. Starvation, frostbite disease ravaged encircled troops, claiming thousands of lives daily. Operation Winter Storm, a 48,000-man, 230-tank relief failed. Relentless Soviet pressure continued weeks, eroding German morale and fighting capability with daily bombardments. By January 31, 1943, Paulus surrendered his remaining 91,000 troops and 22 generals. This marked a catastrophic defeat for Nazi Germany, a definitive Eastern Front turning point they never fully recovered from. Total Axis casualties: German, Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian forces exceeded 850,000 dead, wounded, or captured. Soviet losses were staggering: over 1,100,000 military personnel and hundreds of thousands of civilians perished. The sheer scale of death and destruction made Stalingrad the bloodiest, most decisive battle in human history. 600 tons of daily supplies became less than 100, a death sentence for 290,000. The brutal Battle of Stalingrad reached its terrible climax on November 19, 1942, when Operation Uranus, a massive Soviet pincer movement, crushed German hopes. Over 1 million Soviet troops alongside 1,500 tanks completely encircled Field Marshal Paulus's 6th Army and elements of the 4th Panzer Army, trapping them in a vast 40,000 square kilometer Kessel. Approximately 290,000 Axis soldiers, comprising German, Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian forces, faced truly unimaginable and insurmountable odds within this frozen pocket. Adolf Hitler's unyielding no-retreat order unequivocally condemned these encircled troops to their tragic and inevitable fate, rejecting all desperate pleas for a strategic breakout from the dire situation. The relentless and unforgiving Russian winter arrived with a savage vengeance, plunging temperatures to an extreme -25 and even -40 degrees Celsius, a truly lethal and debilitating cold for all. This extreme weather, compounded by constant devastating enemy fire, worsened an already catastrophic logistical nightmare for German supply lines, which stretched precariously across vast frozen Russian distances, making resupply nearly impossible. The Luftwaffe's daily air deliveries were woefully inadequate, amounting to less than 100 tons a mere, and deeply insufficient fraction of the 600 tons critically required daily to sustain the beleaguered trapped forces. Starvation, rampant frostbite, and devastating diseases ravaged the encircled troops, mercilessly claiming thousands of lives every single day in the most horrific conditions. The desperate relief attempt, codenamed Operation Winter Storm, involving 48,000 men and 230 tanks, tragically failed to break through the impenetrable Soviet ring, sealing the fate of the Kessel. Weeks of relentless Soviet pressure with daily bombardments and a constant erosion of morale painstakingly wore down the German fighting capability until it was utterly depleted. By January 31, 1943, Field Marshal Paulus finally surrendered his remaining 91,000 troops and 22 generals, ending the hopeless struggle. This catastrophic defeat marked an undeniable and definitive Eastern Front turning point for Nazi Germany, from which they never fully recovered their former strength or strategic initiative. Total Axis casualties, including German, Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian forces, profoundly exceeded 850,000 dead, wounded, or captured, making it a staggering toll. Soviet losses were even more staggering, with over 1,100,000 military personnel and additional hundreds of thousands of civilians perishing in the brutal fighting. The sheer scale of death and utter destruction cemented Stalingrad as unequivocally the bloodiest and most decisive battle in all of human history, a stark and enduring reminder of human endurance, suffering, and the immense cost of war.